Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where you hear what pilots have to say. And today we'll be talking to Reed. My name is Zachary. I'm your host from week to week here on the podcast. Today we're going to get into some things. Reed's a car guy. We'll get a little into that for people who are interested into it. But you're also a training pilot here at Thrust.
I am.
So without me telling your whole life story, I'll let you introduce yourself a little
So
bit.
my name is Reed. I'm currently a student and an employee here at Thrust, and I also drift cars for urban racing, and I've been in the racing community since I was 16. So it's kind of how I got into the whole aviation life and everything.
Yeah, I'm curious about that transition. I think there's a lot of people who have. I think I've heard that, people who are in dirt bikes, boats, cars,
Oh
like they
yeah,
tend to find their way into aviation.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's plenty of instructors at Thrust here in Addison that have our former car guys or our car guys still, and there's a few F4 people. I forget their
Yeah.
names, but they used to race F4. I forget what teams and all that. But yeah, the transition from cars to airplanes is very similar, especially when it comes to the engines and knowing a lot about the engines.
And that's what I was noticing. I was sitting in on a multi-engine course recently,
Yeah,
trying to learn some things.
right.
But it's a very technical. I mean, Alex gets really technical.
Oh
Alex
yeah,
Yazda does,
yeah.
and I think that's cool. I mean, I'm into the technical side of things, but like I guess it triggered my brain to realize how technical pilots are asked to be. I mean, you can drive a car without knowing how it works,
Right.
but if you're going to be in the air,
Yeah, you gotta know how it works,
yeah,
especially if something fails, like the alternator or anything on the engine. You got engine knock or anything like that. You gotta know like exactly what's gonna happen.
yeah.
Like if the engine's gonna fail, if the plane's gonna fall out of the sky, or like whatever, what you can do to get the plane on the ground safely.
Hmm.
And the best way to do that is to understand how the engine works. Oh, my electronic fuel pump stopped working. Well, I still have the engine driven one that's driven by the crankshaft. Oh, that one goes out. Well, then you need to know that you need to land the plane. You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly, and it's kind of being aware of that while you're in the
Right.
air,
Yeah.
especially when we start getting the bigger planes and things like that.
Mhm.
Well, let's take a step back real quick.
Okay.
What should I know about you, or what should anyone know about you in order to kind of understand your perspective a little bit? What's something that you want people to know?
Well, I'm very mechanical, and a lot of people ask me like, "Oh, you're so mechanically inclined. How come you're not a mechanic?"
Mm.
Well, I thought about being an aviation mechanic and all that stuff, but I've always loved riding and drifting cars and racing and all that stuff. And the closest thing you can get to that, besides being a driver or a F1 engineer, is to be a pilot, and that's why I chose to be a pilot, hands down. I was in school for mechanical engineering at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Go
Yeah.
Durs! And I just got my first internship. Realized that if I really wanted to make it to the big leagues of like F4 and F3 and all that stuff, it would take me many years, and I'd be well at the age of 45 of when I get there, and I didn't want to wait that long. So
Yeah. Before you had like a viable
yeah,
career
yeah,
or something to
because
chase.
yeah, I mean, if you ask like 12-year-old me, he'd be like, "Oh, I want to be a race car driver, just like my grandfather."
Hmm.
So my grandfather was the one that got me into cars and stuff like that. He used to race Corvettes and stuff like that back in the 60s, 70s,
Cool.
and he got me into the whole car stuff. Just growing up around him, seeing him tinker on the car,
Yeah.
and just made me fall in love with cars and just being mechanically inclined. Like I was
Mhm.
taking stuff apart all the time, and my mom thought I was gonna burn the house down, but yeah, that stuff really helped me out with aviation and really pointed me in the right direction of aviation. Because when I was in college, I got my first internship at an engineering firm, and it wasn't what I expected at all. I thought I would be 50-50 in the office and in the lab, but it's more like 90% in the office, 10% in the lab. And
Mm.
that just wasn't for me. I'm not really one to love the office life. I have to really work with my hands and be active with my decision making process of like tinkering on stuff and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I mean, I do. I think for myself, I can even mistake the interest in the
Hmm.
technical side of things
Yeah.
as like enough, because I'm interested in how it works, like the idea of designing something and like getting into
Hmm.
knowing the knowledge side of it.
Right.
But I like the practical side more than anything, and that's where my interest in the technical side comes in. So,
Hmm.
like, you could be in the office and get a little bit of your fix by at least thinking about it all day.
Hmm.
But no, I want to be out there. I want to touch it. I want to do it. And to your point, I like to have hands-on decision-making process.
Yeah.
So, um, let's say we go back a little bit. When did you like? How old were you, and how long ago did you decide that you wanted to actually go ahead and shift your career into aviation?
Well, I wanted to shift my career into aviation right around my junior year of college. I
Hmm.
started realizing that engineering wasn't exactly what I signed up for. And
During your internship, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, during my internship, and I believe I was 20 years old at the time.
Hmm.
21, I believe. Yeah. So somewhere in between those two ages.
Yeah.
And I just realized that this isn't really what I wanted to do. And I had a few friends that were pilots. One of my friends, his name's Chris Goff, and he's a captain at Southwest. And
Awesome.
yeah, he told me about all these stories about how the pilots he flies with, who are just like me, they like to race and stuff like that, and they still do it on the side.
Yeah.
And they fly airplanes on the weekdays and then race on the weekends.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the kind of life I wanted. So I was like, yeah, like, get a hangar, get a car lift in there, have a bunch of friends over, and just work on cars all day,
It
like
sounds like the life. Yeah, that's pretty
yeah.
cool. Well, you make that decision. That's maybe not an easy decision though.
Oh, it was not. No.
Right. So, what
No.
did that kind of look like? Did you have to talk to your parents? I mean, what kind of
Well,
hurdles were there?
flight school is definitely expensive. So I did have to talk to my family. I was like, "Hey, this is something I've kind of always wanted to do, but I just never took that leap of faith." And just talked to them about it, and they were really supportive. And I got support from all sides of my family, from my grandparents on my mom's side to my grandparents on my dad's side. And so they just chose to help me out and help me get through school. So I moved back in with my parents back home at DFW, and then started looking at flight schools. And the first one that really caught my eye was thrust flight, 100%. I
Yeah.
went to some in Denon, I went to some in Grand Prairie, some in McKinney, and I just thrust flight was really the one that I thought, hey, this one's for me.
I didn't pay him to say that. No, no,
You did not.
that's nice to hear, though. I mean, I believe you when you say it. What is it that made you choose an accelerated program, though? Or is there something like at the end of this that you're looking for?
uh, I really chose this program for the acceleration program. One, because I wanted to start making money as fast as possible because I
Hmm.
have student loans from college I had to pay off, and also the loan for the flight school itself.
Hmm.
But I really chose this school not for the acceleration, but because I felt like it would make me the best pilot I can be.
Hmm.
It seems like there's just the right amount of structure, where there's also still enough freedom, but there's still that structure that you need, kind of like college.
Right.
Like it just seemed right up my alley.
Hmm.
And from the people I talked to when I did come to visit, they all had similar interests. They told me that it's a very community based school and that like people help each other out.
Hmm.
Like you can go up to anybody and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, man, like try this out, and that might work, and that might fix your issue."
Right.
And so that's really why I chose Thrust Light.
Well, then, the second part of that question is, obviously, like you said, the money is a tough part of it.
Hmm.
Did you have to take that loan out on your side, in your
I
name?
did, I
Yeah.
did, yeah, I did.
Okay.
I do have family that are helping me with it, but
Hmm.
how they're helping me is that I have to pay them back.
Right. That makes sense.
But
Yeah.
what's great about Thrust is that you can also work for them, and that's currently what I do right now to help
Hmm.
pay for my loan. Is that I'm a ramper. I'm kind of like the general handyman of Thrust. So like if
Yeah.
something breaks or the lawnmower needs fixing, I'm the guy, and that's actually what I was doing right before this. I was fixing the lawnmower.
Yeah, right before you came in
Yeah,
on the
right before I
podcast.
came
That's crazy.
here.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that's what you were doing over there. I didn't
Yeah.
realize you were a ramper. But yeah. So I asked that question because people kind of get a little nervous about the money side of it. And as
Yeah.
someone, this will be my last thing before I have another question
Uh
for
huh.
you. But uh, did that number scare you at all? Almost
Oh,
scare
one
you
hundred
away? And
percent.
how come it didn't?
100%. Well, the reason it didn't scare me away is because I knew it's be something I love. There's a lot about flying an airplane. That's a lot about a lot of like drifting a car or racing a car. It's very technical. There's a lot of technique to it, especially on like a soft field landing that involves a lot of finesse
Yeah.
and just the technical side of it, the physics side of it.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of that involved in play.
Hmm.
And I loved race physics. That's why I got into engineering. And the closest thing that's to race physics job wise is aviation, being a pilot, because you got to learn about wings and how they produce lift, and if you turn the plane, what happens to your load factor, what happens to your lift, what happens to
Yeah.
your parasite, and uh can't think of the word right now, but just your drag as a
Yeah,
whole.
that makes sense.
Hmm.
I mean, you're thinking about a lot of the similar factors. You feel like that aptitude plays
Oh
into
yeah.
your confidence in being able to succeed here
Yeah.
and maybe making money and paying your loan
Yeah.
back and things like that.
Yeah, it definitely helped me
Yeah.
out a lot in private.
Okay.
Just knowing a lot about race physics and just like if you do this to the car's going to react like this.
Okay,
And
cool.
and that really kind of connected the two together in my private training, because if you try something out, it's going to react a certain way,
Mhm.
because of just the laws of physics.
So when's the first time you actually got into a plane? Did you do a discovery flight?
I did not actually.
Yeah,
I just went straight for it, and I knew it was something I'd love.
yeah.
Like I've always been jealous of my friends who are in the Air Force currently flying for the Air Force, and also my few of my family friends who are pilots, and I always thought their job was the coolest thing ever. I was like, the only thing cooler than that is racing a car, but flying an airplane and doing air shows or
Yeah.
whatever you want to do with your aviation career is just so cool in my eyes.
Gotcha. I feel
So
like I have a good understanding of like, your like your passion for it,
yeah.
which is good. I hope the viewers can like tell the way the way I can.
Hmm.
I will ask, you went to college before
I
this,
did
and you wanted to switch routes. You've been in our program now for a little, maybe about a year.
about a year. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to compare the two a little bit in terms
Hmm.
of your experience. Like, how did you feel, and what was it like going to college versus what it's like going here?
Well, in college, I feel like depending on what your degree is, I feel like your hands held a lot more. Like in
Hmm.
aviation, it's kind of like sink or swim a little bit.
Hmm.
Thrust does do a good job about helping you swim. They give you like little floaties that go on your arm. You know what I mean? Like those little
Right.
kid
I
floaties.
remember those. I remember taking them off
Yeah,
and slipping out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So that's another reason I chose thrust is that I saw that when I was talking to people. But yeah, in college, it's a lot more grade oriented,
Mhm.
and here it's pass or fail. So like
Mm.
that's I would say is the biggest difference. Like you have to do every maneuver to standards or you fail.
Mhm.
And then in college it's like, oh, if you do 70% of it, you pass. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
That makes sense.
that's a little bit different, I would say, is
Mhm.
that, and then also the fact that college is a lot larger,
Mhm.
so you have a lot more people you can ping off to, like kind of like a golf ball going around, just
Yeah.
like bounce around. You can bounce around to these people, see their perspective on this certain subject, and then these people over a certain subject. And then in flight school, you only have certain amount of people,
Mhm.
so it's a lot smaller. It's a lot more community focused. I'd say everyone wants to see you succeed. While in college,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I barely know you, so I don't care. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I see what you're saying. It could go either way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of people always hanging out over at the school
Oh yeah.
on, and especially on a sunny day when
Hmm.
everyone's flying. They come back down and they'll like go over things with each other
Yeah.
and study, or even on a day where everyone's not flying, maybe there's more people in there.
Hmm.
Um, but so the experience, I guess, for anyone who's listening, there's sometimes people who are considering uh, like they're stuck on the idea of going to college. They're like, I want to get a degree. I want to do it this way. This is what I always planned.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's people's parents as well that are like, hey, I want them to get a degree, and maybe the kids are the maybe their parents are not giving them the blessing they're looking for. Is there anything you would say to them?
I would say the degree helps out, but it's no longer needed.
Yeah.
Like it definitely, the college experience is nice, but you can get a college experience at a flight school.
Hmm.
Like I've met some of my best buddies at flight school.
Hmm.
I'm probably closer to them than some of my friends from college, which is kind of a little shell shocking to me, because like I was like, I'm just gonna get in and get out, and I actually met some of my best friends here.
Yeah.
And especially like we have primary flight instructors here, so like it allows you to be a real buddy buddy with your flight instructor, really get to know them, and they get to know you, and they'll help you out. They'll see what you struggle with and all that stuff, and then you'll probably be friends with them at the end of it. Like I'm friends with a few of my flight instructors that I had at the school so far, and I personally love it.
Yeah, that
You
makes
know.
sense. I think that I think that's a great plus to being here. I wanted to know, you said your buddy that you met before you came here
Hmm.
is a pilot at Southwest, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you know much about that person's training and where they ended up
Yeah,
at?
so he went to college, or he was actually in the Marines, and then
Mm,
he went to college and then chose to go back into the Air Force to try to be a pilot. And so he went through officer candidate school, all that stuff, and ended up becoming a pilot for the Air Force. He flew F-16s.
mm-hmm. That's cool.
And yeah, he absolutely loved it. He would tell me all these crazy stories about his training, how he would hit the afterburner while his wife was just watching him on the runway, like plane watching him. And yeah, it really made me like have like kind of those like wide eyes towards it. And I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
And so yeah,
yeah.
he told me about it, and he told me about stories of first officers he would fly with who are like, 23, 24, and they own a hangar with their buddies and have a few like Cessnas in there and like a few car lifts and like would just go to track days on the weekends and fly planes on the weekends. And I was like, yeah, that's the kind of life I want. So
Yeah,
that's why I took the leap of faith, really.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then, if we're moving forward a little bit, now you're in the program,
hmm
uh, and you've gone through what rating are you on?
I'm in commercial
So
right
you're
now.
working on commercial. Have you had any you have a check ride scheduled at all?
No, I'm at the last leg of commercial, so I'm waiting on my stage 2 check right
Okay.
now. So
Gotcha. That's exciting.
yeah.
That'll be pretty cool. Is there anything that kind of caught you off guard when coming into flight training? Like maybe you thought something was going to be a certain way and it wasn't, or there's a difference that you didn't expect.
What really caught me off guard is that it's so much of you gotta learn everything.
Mm,
Like you gotta learn everything about weather. You gotta learn everything about the FARs. You gotta learn everything about the physics of the flight.
right.
And it's just that's really shocking to me, especially coming from college where it's like they give you a syllabus of everything you talk about and all that stuff, and then you go by it one by one in a lecture, which we still do in ground school. Just there's a lot of like I would say curveball questions you could get asked on a stage check or a check ride.
Yeah.
That's like kind of like what's the difference between like an IFR or not an IFR, a VFR flight plan and a VFR flight following. Like
Yeah.
those are kind of like the little things that like or like what's the purpose of the ATIS? Like
And
it's
how do you
just
get through that learning curve? Because like you said earlier, it's like pass or fail sometimes
yeah.
when it comes to that can be intimidating for people. It's pass or fail sometimes when it comes to like things that matter.
Mhm.
But then you say on the back end, there's a lot to know, and you got to
Mhm.
learn everything about everything, kind
Mhm.
of even as technical as a difference between the IFR or VFR flight following, and
Mhm.
so that, for example, learning the difference between those, what does it look like to make a mistake there, and how do you kind of move on?
Uh well, I would say the best way to learn from the mistakes and all that stuff is for me personally. I use YouTube videos all the time.
Mhm,
That's literally how I learned how to take apart my car
mhm,
and literally everything I've done to my car, like from dropping the rear axle to changing the differential out and doing differential timing
uh-huh.
and all that stuff. I learned via YouTube, and I do the same thing with flight training. I'll Sometimes you gotta really dig, but you can find pretty much anything you need to know on the internet nowadays. And obviously, not everything on the internet's correct or it's explained in a poor way. So, like, go up to your primary instructor, which is what I would do, and be like, "Hey, like, I saw this YouTube video explaining that this is why we do this in aviation, and this is why the FAR is like this. So, why is it that like
Yeah,
that?"
open up the
Yeah,
discussion with them
yeah,
so they can, first of all, have the opportunity to correct some of it if it needs to
right,
be, but also it gets your brain asking the right questions.
yeah,
Because I watched, I mean, I think I changed my own plugs and wires one time. I had
mm-hmm.
an old Acura actually, as
Okay,
an Integra, and it was pretty cool, but I
yeah.
didn't get to keep it. Long story short, but I wanted to be a car guy. It didn't work out. But I watched YouTube videos to learn how
Yeah.
to do it, and you get to kind of pick up a lot of information. But then there's times where it's like, I'm missing something here, or I have a question and you can't
Mhm.
ask when you watch videos on the internet.
Yeah.
And so it's nice that you are able to go to your primary for that.
Yeah, that's the
So,
one of the great benefits of having a primary is
yeah.
that they're always there for your questions. So, like, next time you guys are pre-flighting the airplane, you can ask them before you take off, "Hey, like, so what's the purpose of this, fuel regulator in the fuel system?"
Gotcha.
Like, "Oh, it's to regulate the amount of fuel and, like, distribute it into the fuel rails and all that stuff and all the
hmm
injectors." Yeah.
Well, then I'm gonna ask you for some recommendations on some of the, maybe if there's any YouTube channels and things like that.
Okay.
But before, I just want to mention a career in aviation is much more accessible than it ever has been. And if it's something you're interested in, and that's why you're watching this video, feel free to give anyone on our team a call, and we'll answer your questions if you want to know more about what it's like to become a pilot or an aircraft mechanic. You can find that link in our description below, or you can visit thrustlight.com, and we'll be able to talk to you right away. Uh, I wanted to ask though,
Mhm.
do you have any recommendations for other YouTube channels or content creators that you find resourceful or insightful?
Flight Insight was a really good one for just learning instrument. Uh, Instrument is a lot less gray area. It's more black and white. And Flight Insight was really good at breaking down plates and explaining everything on a plate for me. Because that was probably my biggest struggle is just legal stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, and I would say the best one is just mock check rides.
Yeah,
Like there's a lot of people, flight schools, and other private instructors who will post their mock check rides on YouTube just for everyone to have.
that's awesome.
And just watching that, seeing what questions they would ask, and all that stuff helped me out a lot with my ground knowledge.
That makes sense. Then that's one thing I want to ask about too
Mhm.
is about preparing for the check ride
Mhm.
and what that kind of looks like. Uh, do you have any tips for anyone that kind of has helped you uh, with preparing for check rides?
Uh, the biggest thing that helped me, I would say, is really just quizzing with your friends.
Mm,
Like network and find a good friend group or just a good group of people that just talk
yeah,
about questions you have and just ask them to quiz you. You know, that
yeah.
me personally, that's the best way I remember things. Like I had to do it all the time in college and I do it all the time here still is they'll hop in Discord, I'll hop in or I'll just go meet them up in person and they'll just quiz me and then they'll just throw random curveball questions on me. Like I tell them, hey, be as strict as you can, be as as open ending, give me scenario based questions, all that stuff, and let's talk through it and try to see where I'm lacking in the whole check ride
Do you
process.
feel like you is there like is have you like seen anything that you kind of commonly struggle with in a check ride? Is it like a nerve thing or is it a knowledge
It's a
thing?
nerve thing for me.
Okay.
Like especially the difference between college and aviation is that you get face to face with people and they quiz you. They're right in front of you, evaluating you. And me personally, that's always been a hard struggle on me. Like it's so much different from just writing it on a piece of paper because like the piece of paper doesn't stare you in your eyes and be like, you sure about
Yeah,
that?
exactly. Because you have to be able to speak to someone. I mean, I'm not a pilot, right?
Hmm.
Just to reiterate, but I can only imagine. You're in the books, you're learning, you're talking to the instructor, you're talking to your friends, you're taking practice flights, you're getting a little experience. But then it comes time to sit down with someone who is not only a professional. I mean, they're designated to know so much
Hmm.
and actually like know more than you, right?
Hmm.
So I can only imagine what it's like to sit down and like talk to someone who I would put on a pedestal, and try to make it sound like you know what you're talking about. I mean,
Hmm.
what a nervous. What that would make me very nervous.
Oh, it makes
So
me extremely nervous.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you've gotten through a check rider too. It seems like
Yeah, yeah,
so.
you get used to it. That's the thing, like especially in private, and I still struggle with it every now and then, just like nervous sweats and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
but yeah, you definitely get used to it. It is definitely a different experience than writing something on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, they're there to help you. In the end of
Yeah.
the day, that's kind of what helps me out. Is that they're there to make me the best pilot I can be, and that's what I want to be. So
Hmm.
just really taking that into mind and
Yeah.
allowing that to just flow through your brain instead of this person's judging me. You know what I mean?
Right. That
This
makes
person
sense.
doesn't think I'm a good pilot. They don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's easy to get in that mindset. So this is maybe for the car guys who might be watching or listening on whatever platform they're on. How would you compare the thought process of maneuvering the machine?
The thought process of maneuvering it is just really repetition. A
Yeah.
lot of repetition. It's the same thing with racing. Like you gotta chair fly it. You just gotta take a lot of time into it. Like with racing, you usually what a lot of people do is that what I like to do when I go drift to an event or anything like that. They get Texas Motor Speedway, the last event I was at for drift and drag. Uh, Usually you'll take a few laps. They're called cold laps, where you just go around the track, just nice and easy, just so you can try to see envision the line
Hmm.
and envision like, oh, I'm gonna do this at this turn. I'm gonna try the brake flip on this turn, and then a hydro e-brake on this turn here, and then probably hydro e-brake in the middle of this turn, shift up a gear. This is a high speed turn. This is a low speed turn. And it's
Nice.
kind of the same thing with aviation, like especially with like lazy eights or anything that's real technical. You got to be like, okay, 10 and 10, 15 and 15, and then once I hit 15, I'll let the nose drop 45 all the way down, slice the horizon. Once it hits 90, start raising the nose back up. So it is a lot really technical
Yeah.
involved in it. It's just repetition though. That's the best way to get good at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Experience.
That it's cool to hear you say that. And do you do a lot of chair flying?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
My instructor doesn't think I do enough, but but I definitely do. I have before coming to flight school, I bought a little joystick that
Yeah.
I have hooked up to a little simulator game I have
Yeah.
just to help. I mean, I also just chair fly like right before a check ride. I'll always show up a little early, like an hour early or something like that, or depending on what we're doing for the check ride, and then I'll just close my eyes and I'll be like, okay, we're doing a lazy 8, so we're gonna pitch the nose up, pitch it, pitch it, pitch it, pitch it. There's 45, let it drop. Looking for 90. There's 90. Pull it back up.
I can see why that's useful. Do you think that just helps your instincts a little bit?
It does. It does. Same thing with YouTube videos. Like usually like I'll throw on a YouTube video of like, oh, this is a chandelle, and they'll do the chandelle with the GoPro so you can see it. You can see it visually, and then I'll chair flight right after that. You know,
Yeah.
I think that helps me for me personally because everyone's different. It helps me personally stay on top of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's for anyone who's listening. Make sure to do some chair flying, and if you need a little some tips on it, just sit down and think about it a little. Do you have any tips for anyone who doesn't chair fly and they're hearing this right now and they're like, oh, I guess I'll just practice chair flying.
My tip for it is just watch YouTube. If you're not gonna chair fly, watch YouTube at the bare minimum, just
Yeah.
so you can help drill into your memory,
Sweet.
just everything that you need to know.
Okay. Sweet. Gotcha. Remind me after this to get some of those some of that YouTube content from you so I can
Yeah,
do some research myself
yeah.
and see what people like, and maybe we can shout some of those people out.
Mhm,
Okay, so you're in your commercial now,
mhm.
and you're coming up on a stage check, right?
I am.
Anything you're nervous about there?
Oh, just nervous about these wins, man.
Yeah.
These wins have been real bad lately. I mean, I'm always nervous when it comes to any kind of test.
Mhm.
Even right now, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Tight.
Yeah,
Like
awesome.
I seem relaxed, but I'm sweating bullets
I
inside.
couldn't know. Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Just like it's just I want to do my best, and it hurts me when I don't do my best. And it's very important in training, from what I've learned from everyone I know that's in aviation, to not get discouraged and just keep at it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to get through all the mental blocks I have in my head right now. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, what I'm really nervous about on the stage check is just power off 180s,
Yeah.
especially in these windy conditions. My last power off 180, I was about 5 feet long and hurt a little bit. I was like, oh, so close, but not
Yeah.
there.
Not quite.
Yeah,
Like you said, it's pass or fail. So
yeah, that's just how it is.
yeah.
It's the training. The whole reason the training is tough is because it's just like it's a very adrenaline focused
Uh-huh.
job.
Yeah.
It's something where you got to be on your A game 24/7, because if something happens, you're gonna wish you were on your A game. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And we have that Power Off 180 video. We actually have two, but I think the second one turns out to be better from the feedback we got.
Hmm.
But I will be curious to know if that assists you at all if you end up watching that, and
Yeah.
I'd like to get a little feedback on that. So if we have to do a third one, we will.
Yeah, I watched the first one, I believe. I don't know if I watched the second one.
Yeah,
Was it with Liz or?
oh, well, we probably got three then. But we have one with Liz from a while back, and then
Uh-huh.
we have one with Andrew Wickersham, and then we have I think even a second one with Andrew Wickersham.
Okay.
And we'd have to. I'm gonna look up that title one more time, but
Yeah.
I think people are liking the last one a lot. We got some positive feedback on it. Like, this is good. This is
Mhm.
helpful. This helped me pass. Like, I've gotten those kind of
Mhm.
that kind of feedback from outside viewers.
Yeah.
So you're on your commercial from the you know private instrument commercial. Is one harder than the other? Is one kind of proven to be more difficult?
It's really depends on who you are. For me, private came pretty easily because of my background with racing. Just a lot of it connected, especially with systems and stuff like that. Like a lot of the questions they'll ask on in private on your stage check grounds and check ride grounds is how an engine works, and it's just a four-stroke engine, naturally aspirated, air cooled. So it's a very simple engine. It's like almost like a
More simple than most engines we have
yeah,
in our
more
vehicles.
simple than modern cars is the
Yeah.
way I'm looking for. Like it's fuel injected, so the injectors go right in before the valves, and then they go into the air intake, or not into the air intake, into the cylinder heads,
Yeah.
and then the combustion cycle happens, and so it's just learning the combustion cycles, learning what a fuel injector is, what a fuel regulator is, what a piston is, what everything in the engine is, so you can understand it in case something does happen, so you can diagnose a problem while you're filing an emergency or something like that.
Mhm.
Like, oh, is this plane gonna make it 8 miles? You don't know unless you know what the problem is.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you could actually pick up that.
Yeah,
Well, and did the flying part of that come similarly as
yeah,
naturally?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, gotcha. And so how about instrument? What was that like?
Instrument was a little rough, especially because here at Thrust, it's either in the day or it's either at night or it's in the early mornings. And me personally, that just not really in my learning style. I'm more of a midday kind of get my stuff done kind of
Yeah.
person. But instrument was a lot easier because there was the less gray area, if that
Mm.
makes any sense.
Mm.
There's a lot more regulations were more fine tuned, so there wasn't a lot of room for like situations where it's like it could be either one of these
Mm.
regulations where it's just one
It's a little
regulation.
less nuanced in
Yeah.
that way, right? It's by the book, kind
Yeah,
of.
it's a lot more by the book and fly the straight line and follow the glide slope. And commercial is, I would say, for me personally, commercial's the toughest.
Yeah. And
Especially
granted, you're in it right now, but I've
right.
heard that.
Yeah.
So.
It definitely is. I mean, usually I forget how many hours it normally takes outside of thrust,
Mhm.
but we're in an accelerated program, so it's a lot quicker than normal, and it's kind of commercial is like one of those things where you just have to have a lot of experience, a lot of flight time to be really good at it. I mean, you can still be good at it with less hours if you just really lock in and chair fly and do everything you can do, and
Mhm.
then you'll be the best pilot you can be.
Yeah. What do you think it is that makes it a little bit more difficult moving into commercial?
For me, I feel like it's just more of like a bunch of mental blocks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like I should be done with this by now, and I should be here now, but I'm not. It's like
Right.
so it's just a bunch of mental blocks, and some of the maneuvers are really challenging. Like, for me personally, lazy eights is pretty challenging to me, and it's just it's a lot real slow minor movements, and I'm more the one that be yanking the controls a little bit,
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
it's like a lot less of my style, but yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's definitely the hardest, but it's the most fun rating, I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I hear people say that commercial is sort of the. I hear people say that commercial tends to be where you kind of try to tie everything together, and
Mhm.
you're expected to be at a higher level of proficiency. Sort of,
Mhm.
you kind of know what you're doing now, and then you have to, start to look at the sight picture and
Right.
peel your eyes away from the instruments, things like
Mhm.
that. Uh, do you plan on moving to the airlines? What's your career goal?
My career goal is either airlines or charter.
Hmm.
I'd like to teach for like every 2 years or so,
Yeah,
and be a CFI. Hopefully, I'll be a CFI here one day.
yeah,
But my plan is my end goal, be all plan is probably the charter
yeah,
because the planes are a lot faster. I feel like they're a lot cooler, and you don't have to deal with 300 people. You just deal with
yeah.
30, so it's a lot more up my alley, I'd say.
One more time. I've said this a couple times.
Hmm.
If you're listening on one of our streaming platforms, or if you're on YouTube and you're watching this video, and maybe you're interested, maybe you're a car guy and you're interested, please leave us a question if you want to know more about working in aviation. And if you're not a car guy but you're still interested in working in aviation, leave another question because we'd like to answer those. We just want to put more information out there about what it's like to work in this career or in this industry because a lot of people don't realize that it's more accessible than it used to be. Back in, I mean, maybe 30 years ago, you couldn't really get in without going to the military almost. It was difficult, anyways.
Hmm.
And maybe even only 10, 20 years ago, uh, the pay rates were like a third of what they
Hmm.
are now.
Hmm.
And maybe even just 5, 10 years ago, you couldn't move up like you can right now. So I don't know if you've heard all that or if that sounds accurate
Yeah.
to you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
But
it
the
does.
idea is that this is an accessible career and it's something you might want to do. Feel free to click on a link in our bio or go to thrustlight.com to find out more. Otherwise, keep tuning in for more information about all things aviation. And I want to thank Reed for joining us on this episode of Pilots Say What, where we hear what pilots have to say. And my name is Zachary. I'll see you guys next time.